Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. This is an unusual day and time for me to go live, but as you all know, I tend to do that sometimes, and I'll just go live and give my thoughts on something, and then I'll roll out. Just an opportunity to, I guess, make more new friends here in the podcast space, and get my thoughts out there, and just get more content out for you guys. So what I'll do here, I'll wait a couple minutes and see if we get any pickup in the chat. But in the meantime, I will give my spiel. You know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. So as I said, normally we do the lives generally Sunday nights to kind of wrap up the weekend of NFL football. Also Wednesday nights where we do our pick'ems and other topics, and Saturday nights as well. And, as I said, there will be other times that, we go live during the week. But so definitely wanted to take a few minutes here, get on today, give you my thoughts on some things that I've been thinking about, obviously in the world of the NFL, the WNBA, and then the NBA. Just 3 topics. We'll see how long this goes. Don't plan on talking all day on this. Got some stuff to do in a little bit. So, definitely wanted to, like I said, get my thoughts on that. So, if you're here in the chat, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, as I mentioned, and let me know who you are, where you're coming in from. And then, like I said, we'll give it a couple more minutes, see what we get in terms of engagement in the chat, and then we'll go ahead. If it doesn't pick up, then we'll just go ahead anyway, and we'll make it an intimate little gathering here. But definitely wanted to give you my thoughts on this stuff. So, yep, we'll do that. All right. Well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and we'll get started, and we'll see who comes in along the way. All right. So we're gonna start out with the NFL, and obviously we're on the home stretch of the NFL season now, looking towards teams getting set, and getting prepared, and trying to lock up seeding in terms of the NFL playoffs, which will be coming up in about a month here. I think we got 4 or 5 games left, 4 games left. So yeah, 3 games left. So we got about a month left. And so we are waiting to see kind of how it's all going to play out. And it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. I think we had an idea who the best teams were in the NFC and in the AFC, but now things are starting to get a little iffy, right? Kansas City, I believe, what are they, 13-1 now? But all-world quarterback Pat Mahomes, he appears to have an ankle sprain, and we'll see how long it's going to be, if he doesn't play this weekend or what. And even at 13-1, yeah, they've been finding ways to win, because that's what great teams do, but they haven't at all looked dominant. They've been winning a lot of games via defense. They won 1 game with a block kick at the end, but they have not looked anything like the Kansas City that we've known in the past. You saw the Buffalo Bills. I think they're 10-3 now. They're playing really good football right now. So, they're looking to hopefully try and catch Kansas City and see if they can't get that number 1 overall seed and make everything come through Buffalo. You have, the 10-4 Pittsburgh Steelers right now. They're playing good ball, but they're coming off a loss, and they have a monster showdown in Baltimore this weekend on Saturday. So that, I think, is going to go a long way to determining AFC seeding. So a lot going on in the AFC. Then you've got in the NFC, you've got the 12-2 Detroit Lions, who for a long time looked like the best team on that side in the NFC. And the problem here, though, is I think the Lions have like 18 guys on injured reserve, and as good as they are, it's almost impossible to conceive of anyone being able to survive that type of attrition, that type of damage done to your roster and your team by injuries. So you're wondering how that's going to play out. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, who are just kind of rolling along, and they have one of the best defenses in the league. They have a very good offense. Saquon Barkley probably in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. Might not get the MVP because he looks like he got knocked off of position to try and break Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record. May still get it, but he kind of looked like he got knocked off of that with, I think he only had about 67 rushing yards on Sunday. And so the Eagles now look like they could be the class of the NFC, but now you're wondering, okay, Tampa Bay is surging. And if they get a home game and for whatever reason the Eagles have to go there, can they deal with that? The way Baker Mayfield is playing, and that's the subject of our first topic here, they possibly could beat anybody. This is a very good football team. They just went out to LA this past weekend, and they took the Chargers, number one scoring defense in the league. Literally, they took them behind the woodshed, beat them 40-17. They dropped the 40 burger on them. Very impressive. Baker Mayfield, I think about 288 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. So really, really good game for him. And the reason I was thinking about Baker Mayfield, just kind of watching every weekend. If you watch this show, like when you hear Transformer and I, and we're making our pick'ems and whatnot, I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield. And, one of the things I like to say, just, in jest, but something I heard when he was in college, we call him Baker, touchdown maker. And this is a guy that he's been through some ups and downs in his career, right? I think he came in second in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting as a rookie. While he was in Cleveland, he was able to help Cleveland win their first playoff game in 26 years. And I want to say in that game, they put like 48 points on the Steelers. So a Steelers, team that's known for defense. So really outstanding team there. And they did their thing. So you're looking at it and you're saying, well, Baker, he's got a lot of ability, but I think in his third season, he played most of the way with an injured shoulder. So the team didn't play particularly well, as they probably wouldn't when their starting quarterback has an injured shoulder, right? But he tried to tough it out and go all the way through. And then we find out that Cleveland has an opportunity to grab Deshaun Watson, which, as we now see, probably was not the best move. And they let Baker know that they were going to get Deshaun Watson. Baker requests a trade. He gets traded to Carolina, gets benched there, has a terrible run. Matt Stafford gets injured in Los Angeles with the Rams. Baker goes out there, and after only 2 days in the building, he starts, I think, on Thursday Night Football, and he wins an amazing game against the Raiders with a pretty much last-second touchdown pass, which was freaking incredible. And he kind of starts to feel his way again, and then after that, he gets released, and he ends up in Tampa, where he's been for the last couple of years, and he's had 2 really great seasons there. So now you look at Baker, and last year in Tampa, he played all 17 games and 9-8. They won the division. They won a playoff game. So that's 2 playoff wins for Baker. Now, if you're counting 4,000 passing yards, so that was the high of his career. 28 passing touchdowns. That was also the high of his career. Only 10 interceptions. Now, you never want double-digit interceptions, but Baker, he's going to give you some of those, right? Because he's definitely a gunslinger, and he's a big game, big throw type of player. Now, is that saying he's elite or he's a top 5, top 8 quarterback, maybe not even top 10, but Baker's really good. And the way he played last year, again, helping them to get the division championship and helping them to win a playoff game in the first round. And they were right there with an opportunity to win a playoff game in the second round at Detroit. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that he threw an interception on that final drive trying to make something happen. So he literally gave the game away. I get that, but they're not in that position if it's not for Baker. So a really good year last year, career year. And I think they gave him a 3-year extension for about $100 million roughly. So, he was compensated, not the huge money we see some of these quarterbacks getting, but compensated well. And now he's back, and he has looks like they may end up, if they finish strong, with a better record this year. They're currently, they be in Tampa Bay, they're currently 8-6. He's 71% completions on the year. He looks like he's on the path for another career year. Right now, he's got 3,617 passing yards. He will probably end up breaking his own mark from last year, probably get up around 41, 42, 100 passing yards. He's got 32 touchdowns, another career high. So Baker is playing extremely well. And the reason I thought this was so interesting, not just because I'm personally a fan of the way the guy plays, but if you remember, he was ripped a lot in the mainstream sports media coming out of college. And one of the main people that was, really going in on him was Colin Cowherd. And a big part of that was, let's be honest here, Baker had some judgment issues in college, right? He was out there drinking and acting up. And there was one situation where he was drinking and he was running from the police, and it got caught on video. And I think the cops actually ran him down, which is not good in terms of being an NFL player, right? Getting run down by some local cops. But again, he was drunk. So, and I'm not advocating for that at all. Anyone who knows me knows I don't drink at all. So I'm not advocating for the being drunk. I referenced the being drunk in terms of him getting run down by cops as, an NFL caliber athlete. So I say all that to say, he had that. He had the issue with planting the flag at Ohio State, which didn't go so well. He had the issue, I think it was either at Kansas or Kansas State, where, he was getting into some trash talk, et cetera. And he grabbed his genitals and made a kind of obscene gesture with that, like sometimes young men will do. Again, not advocating it, but it's what he did. And so Colin Cowherd really was a guy who ripped him publicly. Basically, he thought he was immature. He thought he wasn't good enough. He compared him to Johnny Manziel coming out of college, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I get to some extent the comparison to Johnny Manziel, right? Two shorter white quarterbacks who kind of moved around a lot in college, played in very dynamic offensive passing systems, won Heisman trophies. So I think Cowherd was looking at all those similarities. And then, of course, you see some of the quote unquote immaturity, some of the poor decision making, et cetera. But everybody who's been around Baker, like his teammates, et cetera, they speak well of him. They love him. They say he's a leader. But Cowherd was he always talks about he wants his quarterbacks to be quarterbackial. He wants his quarterbacks to be buttoned up. That's the type of guy he is. And to some extent, I get that, right? This is the leader of your franchise. This is the guy who has to, in terms of among the players, he's the main guy generally that has to go stand at the podium and answer questions. And he's reflective of your entire program, your franchise. So you kind of want a certain guy up there. And also, one of the things Cowherd talked about when Baker was in Cleveland was him starting fires at the podium, saying things that didn't go over well. And I guess at the end of the day, some people kind of grow into their fit and their level of maturity at different points in their life than others. And so now you see Baker and it looks totally different. It seems like everything's come together for him. He's loving playing football. He's having a ton of success. Woodage 84, what's going on, man? What's good? Good to see you. Yeah, absolutely. Look at the Browns since getting rid of Baker. They've been terrible. Sometimes the grass on the other side is not always greener, right? We see this in multiple aspects of life, and that's why that saying exists. Because you think, man, I'm here and I got this, but I'm gonna go over there and get that, and that's gonna be so much better. But it doesn't always play out that way, right? Now, we can be honest, Deshaun Watson, prior to him sitting out a year to try and force the trade out of Cleveland, as well as his personal issues, which we're not going to get into, he was an outstanding quarterback. He was better than Baker, right? He was more athletic, had better stats, better production, et cetera, et cetera. But look who's got the advantage now. And again, we are seeing what Baker is doing, and it's impressive. So I wanted to play some sound on some different people in terms of what they had to say about Baker Mayfield and how he's playing now and what he's doing. I really didn't feel like going through the Colin Cowherd stuff because there was so much negative stuff from early in Baker's career, about 6 years ago. You can look all that up on YouTube if you want, where he was really, like I said, he was just going hard on the guy. Pause. And there wasn't, in my estimation, a whole lot of need for that, other than saying, clearly he made some poor decisions in college. We will see if he goes high and if he's the face of a franchise, if this is a guy that can make better decisions and be a leader and put that stuff behind him and get his maturity in check. So, I mean, I get it. If you're going to draft a guy high and maybe even number one overall and say, this is going to be the face of my franchise, there's certain things I expect, but I think Cowherd was really, really tough on him. But if you notice lately, probably from last year up until now, he's really come around on Baker. He's apologized. He admitted he was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it was interesting. Let's see what we got. Tampa has the same team that won the Super Bowl a few years ago. Just need a solid QB at the very least for them to get over the top. Yeah, they have relatively the same roster. I think it may take a little more than a solid QB, but I think in the right Baker can be that. I think the only key is for him not to make a mistake in the big moment, right? We saw that they had an opportunity to beat Detroit last year at the end of that game. And so he gets the ball back, I think probably around his own 15, 20, somewhere in there. And he's trying to drive and he throws that pick to end the game. So, the key is going to be not making mistakes. But we've seen, man, when this guy's on his game, he can do it. So let's hear some comments from football analyst Brian McFadden regarding Baker Mayfield and hear what he has to say.
Baker Mayfield, once again, I mean, Baker plays with no heart in terms of conscience. He just goes about his business. And the thing about Baker, he can have a bad play. It never happened for him mentally because he goes and he progresses like everything is positive. Once again, 22 of 27, only 5 incompletions, almost 300 yards, 288 to be exact, 4 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield has been balling. I know you would never put his name in the MVP conversation, but when it comes to doing more with less, in terms of at one point in this season, he was without his top 2 pass catchers. Heck, Chris Godwin will not return. Mike Evans came back. Didn't miss a beat. He was able to weather the storm without his high-level pass catchers, kept his team afloat. And right now, they're thriving like no other team in the NFC. When you look at some teams that are not the household names in the NFC, when you talk about the Detroit Lions of the world, the Philadelphia Eagles of the world, there are some teams that's right on the outside looking in that you have to monitor in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I put them in the same neighborhood as the Rams. Those 2 teams you do not want to see in the playoffs, especially when you look at the confidence that they're playing with and how well their quarterbacks are playing on either side.
We've seen them offer walking papers to better teams in the playoffs before. I'm not sure you want to see this Tampa team when it's all said and done. They inch ever closer to a division title there. Mac, you allude to the heart of Baker Mayfield. I know what you're saying in terms of his almost malaise that he goes into. There's such a competitor spirit within him that he flips that switch and becomes a different beast. He's a foxhole guy. Like, he's the guy you want in the foxhole next to you. What is the value in that? Sort of the intangible. We could talk about the numbers, but how much is it worth to have a guy like Baker Mayfield believing through the attrition?
It means a lot because he's a fighter that never quits. But he plays the most important position on your team, which is the quarterback. And you can tell the entire team rally around Baker. Look at his fight. When he's in the pocket, it's collapsing. He's never going down. He's trying to fight and claw for every positive yard. When he breaks the pocket, he's looking to make something happen with his arm or with his legs. I just love his nature, the nature that he loves in playing football. Yeah. You can tell Baker Mayfield loves football because he attacks the game like his last play every down.
So you love what you're hearing there from Brian McFadden in regards to Baker and him attacking every play like it's his last. And those are the type of things that you love to hear. You don't necessarily always hear that about quarterbacks. A lot of times you will hear it said about quarterbacks, just live to play another down, right? Don't do something stupid and don't turn the ball over. But sometimes you need that fiery guy that's always trying to do a little something extra within reason, right? Not a little something extra and then end up turning the ball over. But you love to hear that about Baker. So one of the things I thought was interesting, though, was he said, you'll never hear Baker in the MVP conversation. So my question becomes, like, why not? For instance, he could conceivably finish, not necessarily this season because of what Josh Allen is doing, what Saquon Barkley is doing, what Lamar Jackson is doing, but any other year, right? You're talking about 71% completions, probably about 4,300 passing yards, probably about 40 touchdowns, right? And a good record, maybe winning the division. Why can't you be in the MVP discussion? Why is that? Now, again, not this year because those guys are absolute freaks, but those are the type of numbers that get you in that discussion right now. Could he clean up some of the interceptions? Yes, this year so far he's already got 14 picks. So hopefully he doesn't end up around 20. Possible though. But the question there again is why couldn't he be in the MVP discussion? I think that a lot of times is the problem with the MVP discussion, and I lament this a lot in basketball and the NBA, is that there's no clear criteria set for this thing, much like the Heisman Trophy. Why? Because I guess they want it to be subjective. They want people to be talking about it. They want people to be debating about it. They want people to be discussing it after this stuff comes out. And so my question would be, when it comes to the MVP, if there are certain criteria in place, well, you have to reach at least this threshold of passing yards and this threshold of passing touchdowns and this threshold of team wins and blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not to say that certain other conditions won't be taken into consideration, right? You look at a guy like Baker this year, he loses Godwin for a few games, and now he's got Godwin, and Godwin has Godwin, of course. Not Godwin, I'm sorry. Mike Evans was looking like he might not receive for 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, but he's probably going to get it now. I think he needs about 84 yards a game for the next 3 games in order to get that and continue to cement his Hall of Fame case. He'll be there. He's never not had 1,000 yards receiving in his entire career. So he missed some time. Chris Godwin is done for the year. He missed time. You got your next receiver, Jalen McMillan out of Washington. He was up there with that nasty triumvirate of Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and Rome Odunze with Michael Penix Jr. last year that went all the way to the college football playoff national championship game. But so, yeah, Baker's got Jalen McMillan, who is a rookie, but he has managed to, in the absence of Chris Godwin, start to really establish a rapport with him. And McMillan has started to become a solid contributor during that time. And so he's been doing a lot. So I don't see why it is you would say he's never going to be in your MVP conversation. If he's healthy and he's playing like this, I don't understand why he couldn't be. Now, is he going to win it over a Lamar Jackson who is doing things we've never seen before? No. Is he going to win it over a Josh Allen who's doing things we've never seen before? No. But to say that he'll never be in your discussion, nah, I don't really like that. I don't think that made a whole lot of sense to me at all. But let's go ahead and listen to Rich Eisen, formerly of NFL Network. I don't know who he's with now. He may still be with them, but Rich Eisen, and he's got some commentary to make on Baker as well.
Very few people can succeed being the guy after the guy. I mean, one of the only few people who's the guy after the guy I've seen succeed. For instance, Drew Carey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good one. Or a Packers quarterback.
Oh, that's another one. You don't want to be that. Rodgers and Love have seemingly succeeded guy after guy.
They follow Don Mikowski like greatly.
Andrew Luck was pretty good.
How about how about following Tom Brady in Tampa, Florida? Want to be that guy after the guy? Certainly, if it's just like, well, you know what? Tom's leaving. We'll give Baker a shot. Well, Baker Mayfield, everybody, look at what Baker Mayfield is doing. Certainly, when Mike Evans went down with a hamstring injury after Chris Godwin went down for the season, good luck, Buccaneers. Well, look at him now. Baker Mayfield, in his first season after Brady, got the team to the playoffs. And won a playoff game, bounced the Eagles, put a scare in the Lions, followed that up by getting pizzade, and all he's done is has this team, after being swept by the Falcons, in first place, no matter what the Falcons do tonight with 3 games to go, and has set a new career high for passing touchdowns in a season, with 4 more yesterday on the Chargers' top scoring defense, giving up only 15.6 points per game. Baker had 4 more yesterday. Missed on only 5 passes, 5 incompletions, 4 touchdowns. Hey, now. He is now has multiple games of 80% completion percentage or better with 4 passing touchdowns in a season. Multiple games. The other quarterbacks in the history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who have done that are, let me get the list, nobody. He's the first.
That's impressive, right? Especially being that Tampa Bay had Steve Young, Hall of Famer, Doug Williams, Super Bowl champion, of course, Tom Brady, the greatest of all time ever at the position. So to say that you're Baker Mayfield and you're doing things that nobody has done before in the history of your franchise, that's pretty impressive. And he's doing it not necessarily on a bad team, right? He's doing it on a team that, as we mentioned, is in position now to win the division. Now, if you remember when we did our preseason division picks, I picked Tampa Bay to win this division, and I was kind of worried about it early in the season after they lost twice to Atlanta. But since Atlanta has kind of imploded, I guess that's the word we could use, since they've imploded, Tampa Bay is right back in position and looking like they're going to go ahead and finish this thing out and win the division. So I didn't think they were going to be able to survive those injuries to their offensive weapons, man, but credit Coach Todd Bowles, credit offensive coordinator, I think it's Liam Cohen, credit Baker Mayfield, credit Mike Evans for working his way back, credit the rookie running back, Bucky Irving. So everybody is really doing everything they can do to contribute. And have a great season and to survive all those injuries. But at the end of the day, you can't do it without the quarterback, man. And again, he's just having a tremendous season, man. And honestly, it's good to see based on the fact that you heard so much negativity about him and around him just a couple of years ago, whether it was about all the progressive commercials, which they were actually pretty funny. I really enjoyed those. The commercials where he lived in the stadium in Cleveland, him and his wife. I thought those were pretty funny. But a lot of people said, he was doing the commercials too early. He wasn't focusing on football, so on and so forth, which I didn't necessarily agree with, right? Because, again, I think in his time in Cleveland, he had like 4 head coaches in 4 years, which is absurd, right? He had Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, Freddie Kitchens, and Kevin Stefanski. Like, I don't know what rookie quarterback is going to have success under those conditions, but it is what it is. Anyway, he seems to have found the place where he's comfortable, found the place where he's happy, found the place where he's having success. And so, we will see going forward what Baker is able to do. What do we got here? Black Dynamite, what up, what up? In his early days, Baker kind of had the Favre gunslinger mentality, but now he definitely calmed down, played smart. Yeah, but he still kind of has the gunslinger mentality. You look at some of the throws that Baker makes, and he definitely will. He'll rip some in there, man. And sometimes you're like, "Whoa, that was dangerous," but he clearly believes in his ability to make every throw. And you'll see here on some of these that he's gonna like that was a real close one down the seam. Wide receiver covered very, very tightly, but he drilled it in there. This was one of the games against Atlanta. He lost this game, obviously, but he played extremely well. I think one of those games, Kirk Cousins threw for like 500. But as we see, Kirk Cousins, I don't know what happened to him. He fell off a cliff. He is not playing well. There's another one, right? He drilled it in. I probably would have gone over to that left corner by the pylon in the front of the end zone, but he drilled it in right there into double coverage. So Baker definitely has his gunslinger moments. He has above average arm talent. He definitely can. He's got some power when he lets it go. But it's just so interesting to me that Cowherd did a lot of comparisons early on to Johnny Manziel, and I think his comp as a player was Case Keenum when Baker came out, and I'm like, really? Nah, like that's disrespectful. But okay, cool. But now we see that it's something very different. We see he's come a long way, and we see even Cowherd has had to give him his props now. So yeah, that's that. Baker Mayfield is doing his thing. Baker, touchdown maker, is having the best season of his career, and we'll see what happens from here. Well, Black Dynamite, I don't even know if Kirk Cousins turned back into Kirk Cousins. I think it's more a function of Kirk Cousins. He came out hot, but he kind of showed like he was never the most mobile guy. And now he's showing like when the pressure comes to him, he can't evade it at all. I don't think he has a whole lot of confidence in that surgically repaired Achilles. And again, he wasn't mobile to start with. So he's kind of stuck, man. And I think Atlanta is screwed. And I think what they need to do is go ahead and bench him and get Michael Penix Jr. in there to give him some reps going into the offseason, make him the guy. And then next season we will see, because I think Penix is going to be a star in this league. I really do. And I think it's over for Kirk Cousins. I don't know if they're trying to attempt to get some good tape out there so they can trade him for something, because I think he got like $100 million. So, do you want $100 million sitting on your bench? But are you trying to win? Right. So it's a toss up. It's however you want to play that. Are you trying to win, or are you thinking about the money if you're Arthur Blank? I don't know.